All right, guys. Well, I'm done finally with getting everything back to where it was in Scootersoft. And I believe we will be able to have another game for you here in the very near future. But before then, we're going to take this opportunity to go over just one more of these players who is really, really obscure. This is a guy who played a little bit more later on, but his exploits in 1908, at least, are a little bit interesting and somewhat controversial. We're going to be talking about Art Wilson. You've probably never heard of Art Wilson unless you are really a baseball historian. I mean, this guy did play for quite a few years in the majors. He had a 14-year career, fairly good in terms of his batting ability, especially for a catcher. As you can see, he was a catcher his whole career. What we're interested in, of course, though, is 1908. So in 1908, he played one game, and it was all a bunch of zeros. This is your Moonlight Graham. Except he didn't even have a defensive appearance. He had no fielding logs for 1908. I mean, it doesn't matter. We don't really have the fielding record on Baseball Reference anyway. But if you go down here to standard fielding, he has no fielding record. It's because he didn't appear in the field. Art Wilson was a pinch runner in 1908. And there you have it right there, pinch runner. So if you're playing with your Scootersoft cards, you will see Art Wilson pop up, and he will be pinch runner. That's all. So we'll go take a look right here, see if we can figure out what happened. This is another one of these players that's very, very difficult for us to deal with, right? He was playing before for Bloomington. In fact, we probably should take a look here and see minor and Cuban League statistics. Let's see what we have here. Yes, he was with Bloomington in 06, 07, and 08. So this is where we can start to do the research and figure out where he moved over to the New York Giants. I'm going to assume that, for the sake of this replay, I've done this before, actually. I kind of assumed that he moved over sometime in September because this game in which he appeared was September 29th. Right, you just kind of have to make that kind of assumption. We could probably figure it out, though, if we took quite a bit of time, look through the Bloomington, Illinois newspapers that exist, if there are any from that year, and sort of figure out exactly what happened. He was severely injured by a mule in November 1907. Interesting, at the family farm, and they thought that he was going to die, but ended up recovering and playing for Bloomington, and then getting his first shot at the major leagues. So it says that, he was showcased in an exhibition game in August 1908. I guess it's possible that he was with the Giants sometime in August. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to tell just based upon this. It seems that he was officially sold to the Giants for $1,000 in September. My guess is that the Giants were probably doing something that I've talked about here before, that you don't know much about unless you follow like association football in Europe, which is where you bring a player in on loan. So that's not really a thing in American sports these days, but I believe that it probably was at this period of time where you'd have a guy come in, have him stay with the club for a couple of days, have like an exhibition game. In Europe, they'd have a friendly, and put him out there, see how he does, and kind of decide what to do. I'm guessing that's what happened in August when the New York Giants played against Springfield. I'm guessing that John McGraw was probably impressed with what he saw and decided to buy Wilson in the end in September of that year. It says here, Wilson didn't factor in this. This was the pennant race, as he barely made an appearance running for Roger Bresnahan in the second game of a doubleheader on September 29th. Wilson did not even stay in the game to catch. Now, this part is weird, and I'm not sure that I fully understand what happened. So what we have right here is the Evening World, which has the coverage of this game. So the Giants won the first game of the doubleheader 6-2, and then lost the second one 7-0. We're going to talk next time about Harry Kovaleski, who's this guy right here. I'll zoom in on that. There he is. Kovaleski is a very, very significant player in the 1908 pennant race. This is Harry. This is not the one that ended up pitching for the Indians in 1920. This is his brother. Kovaleski was known as the Giant Killer because of what he did to the Giants that year. It's one of those stories that has been forgotten, unfortunately, as time has gone by, but it was quite significant at the time, and really still today is significant in terms of baseball history. It's the sort of story that we should talk more about because it's really interesting. So we'll go over here to where the second game begins, because this is where we see what happens. So the Giants are at home, of course. So first inning, bottom of the first, McGee made a great catch of Tenney's short fly to left. Grant tossed out Herzog. Roger Bresnahan, who we talked about before, who started like every game at catcher, was safe on Sheen's error. Wilson ran for Bresnahan. McCormick struck out. So Art Wilson came in to pinch run for Bresnahan in this game in the first inning of this game, which is just, beyond, Have you ever heard of that happening? Bresnahan hit third in the lineup. Which itself is really interesting, and then decided to they just took him out of the game like right away. So if we go down here to see this, remember when I was talking about Roger Bresnahan's streak? Look at all of these games in a row that he had played. This is sort of the reason why it happened. He was pulled out, and then look at that. He doesn't play in game 149, 150, or 151, so he ends up with 3 days off. So it probably is the case that we'll probably need to take a look at this. He may have been just completely exhausted. It may have been some sort of injury. Maybe he pulled something temporarily or something like that. But that's the fascinating thing, because that there's something weird happening, that the guy would start at catcher again for the who knows how many games in a row. For like almost probably more than the 50th game in a row, and then had to be taken out for a pinch runner in the first inning. That's Art Wilson's claim to fame. Pinch running for Roger Bresnahan in the first inning of this game in 1908. And this wasn't just some random game that didn't matter. If the Giants had won this game, they wouldn't have been tied with the Cubs at the end of the season. So there's that. This is very, very interesting stuff, and somewhat historic. Perhaps we can blame it all on Art Wilson and his inability to help McCormick get a base hit instead of striking out. I don't know. Anyway, interesting stuff. On another note, I also kind of want to take a look and just see how the Giants were lining up, how their lineups were in 1908, just to see if it was normal for Bresnahan to hit third, because that sounds like the sort of lineup that I would come up with, as you know from watching so many of the games that I've done. And yeah, you can see it was usually Dollins, Seymour, and then, Bresnahan started hitting third. Interesting, starting all the way back in June. So it's not necessarily the case that in that particular game that McGraw was trying something really sneaky or something like that. In fact, here's Bresnahan hitting second. What I'd really like to see is any game where Bresnahan's hitting first, but it doesn't look like there was anything like that, because that's where I would stick him if he's hitting well. But yeah, look at that, hit third almost all the time. Almost every single game that he's healthy for, ends up hitting third. And then when he came back after whatever it was that happened, he was seventh, and back to third again at the very end of the season, sort of a good luck charm. So anyway, there you have a lot of interesting stuff going on here. This is one of the reasons why it really does pay to spend some time to really look into some of these guys who are unknown, who you may have never heard of, or had just one appearance, maybe a pinch running appearance, or maybe an appearance in the field for a game or something like that. Sure, sometimes you do get the Moonlight Graham story where you've got, the guy becomes a doctor after his playing days, and then somebody, decides to feature him in a big Hollywood movie or in a novel that becomes a Hollywood movie or whatever, right? That stuff's all right, but for me, the real interesting stuff is looking into this and being like, wait, why is this guy pinch running in the first inning of the second game of the doubleheader? What happened here? Something must have happened. And it just so happened to be one of the most critical games of the season. So, we could say that, it's a shame that he didn't do more. He didn't even get to catch, and that is a shame. But man, you really kind of wonder what it would have been like for Art Wilson. Geez, you just come up to the big team. You've been over in, rural Illinois for 3 seasons, and then all of a sudden you're in New York City in 1908, with people going crazy about this pennant race, and you're trying to deal with John McGraw, the personality, the forcefulness, the fire, and all that stuff. Real interesting stuff. Anyway, there you go. I won't keep you all day with all of my thoughts on this, but it's stuff like this that makes replays really, really interesting. This, in my mind, is part of the heart and the soul of really doing the replay. It's more than just getting like a list of transactions from whatever source. When you dig into it, it's actually really interesting stuff. Talk to you later. Bye.